Okay.
it.
Yeah, I'm audible, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Petroleum from Scratch YouTube playlist on the series of podcasts. And I'm very happy to be hosting one of the great mentors of oil and gas industry, Mr. Deep Nanda. Deep, sir, great to have you here. I have no need to introduce you to the audience. If someone's from the oil and gas industry, you are a well-known figure. I have been as worked as an intern. I have worked as an intern at Rezlytix, the company that you take care of. And even when I was joining Rezlytix, the seniors of the industry, they told me how great a mentor you are, and they were appreciative of the fact that you should definitely spend some time in Rezlytix. So great to have you here, sir. A quick word from your side as we start the session.
Thank you, Divyanshu, and it's great joy to see the kind of work you have been doing, and I'm very excited about series, podcast series, which you are leading. So really excited to be here, and yeah, look forward to having some thoughtful discussion.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for spending your Sunday evening on this series.
No
Uh,
issues.
one thing that I would like to know from your end is like quick start, because there's a huge hype about data science.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been observing right now is a lot of students are right in first and second years of whatever domains they are in. They just want to get into data science. So the industry is starting to get saturated with people who just want to do it, not as a tool, not as a news upskill, but they just want to do it. So
Mhm.
what do you look at it like from a from someone who is a CEO? How do you look at it? Uh, what's your suggestion for the students?
So essentially, data science is pretty vast. Like data science in itself encompasses ideas, the algorithms, and there is so much more about the data at the end of the day. Now, for our industry, which is in oil and gas, the relevance lies when there is some valuable output which comes from that exercise, through which we term it as data science. So I think students engaging in early years is great. um, just Yeah, it is a great thing to start early. Let that be with any sort of data. Maybe it's a different data set. um, uh, but oil and gas is going to be a different relevant area. I mean, one has to have domain expertise in oil and gas to be able to become an effective data scientist, especially if we are talking about in oil and gas, whether it be upstream, whether it be midstream, whether it be downstream, any one of them.
Right. So just as we talk about that, I mean, before even they start with data science, you have seen the industry from where it was in the 90s and the 2000s to where it is now. Uh, where is the industry heading, according to you?
See, I can give a very perspective which from spins from the experience I have had, and I am 100% sure there are going to be multiple versions and multiple ways by which others will look at it. Um, the industry today, especially we are talking about oil and gas industry, is definitely the upstream industry is definitely facing a big challenge in terms of how easy it was to get funding.
Hmm.
Now, that has kind of dried out, especially when we are talking about exploration, to be precise. I'm talking about funding from big banks, essentially, for oil and gas companies. So that funding has started to get constrained and narrow. So what that does is it impacts everyone in that whole food chain, essentially.
Hmm.
So when we talk about that food chain of in this oil and gas industry, then we have to also appreciate that with the kind of uplift or so much talk about hype about data science, there could be some improvement in that food chain where we could reduce cost. At the end of the day, it is the financial component which is going to play a vital role. Uh, so if the fundings are drying out for doing new exploration, then what do folks do? then we are talking about reduction of cost and implementing data science in that space, if that impacts in reducing costs. And there is value there. There is a lot of merit to that idea, and a lot of folks are doing quite a bit of work in that space. So if I understand your question, I mean,
Right.
the industry is essentially looking forward in reduction of cost in terms of upstream. But where we are heading is essentially we are going to head towards a more like a symbiotic relationship with oil and gas, which is going to be the non-renewable and
Right.
with the renewables. So we are definitely heading towards that space, but oil and gas is going nowhere. In terms of it being relevant, it will be 100% relevant even 50 years from now. There are so many products which utilize the raw material of crude, so it will continue. There may be some impact to the kind of to the transportation industry, especially when we are talking about EVs. However, I think the debate about whether the EVs are carbon neutral is still valid and strong,
Right.
as the lithium-ion batteries or any kind of nickel, cobalt, and all the minings require so much more energy. So there is overall there is going to be a negative carbon output. So one has to optimize everything. So yeah, there is so much more optimization to be achieved. We are still not there.
Yes, we are still not there, but even more so, what's still not there is the college curriculum. Like, petroleum from scratch is very
Yeah,
close to the
very
academics.
true.
What scares me is it's not even in the hands of students right now. I'm not even aware of when the curriculums will change.
Ah,
So, what's your take on that? Like,
now we have to change them now. There's no
exactly.
other time. Curricula has to literally be dynamic, to be precise, because time is changing. Time has drastically changed. The curricula needs to change, and I'm so glad Petroleum from Scratch is also hitting some of those spots where the curricula is not being covered, especially with your tutorials on deep learning or machine learning based approaches in petroleum engineering. Um, I'm sure now quite a bit of workshops are happening in that space.
Yes. Yes.
There's quite a bit of scattered data around in YouTube and other places.
Hmm.
So I'm sure folks are already tapping into it. But again, I mean, curricula needs to change for all the universities. And if we are talking about Indian universities, we have to catch them really quick.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the aim of our venture is to, we cannot wait for the colleges to change things, but we
Yeah.
can surely influence the students' mindsets. And I hope this discussion with you uh, adds to the credibility of the younger folks at Petroleum from Scratch, because it helps to listen to the seniors from the industry. Moving on to the next part of my question. Yes, the curriculum has to change, but even in the current curriculum, I see a lot of petroleum engineers limiting themselves to, let's say, reservoir engineering. Let's say they want to work in a drilling engineer job or something like that. One of the key problems the students face in placements is they skip companies just because they have a hypothesis that a petroleum engineer is a drilling engineer, a petroleum engineer is a reservoir engineer. Even I had that thought process. So they are scared that what I used to think was, if I don't get to work in a reservoir profile, down the lane I won't be able to work as a petroleum engineer. So if you are the hiring manager, how do you look at students who are placed in the four big mass recruiting companies? You know what I'm talking about. So these companies, they come and they provide recruitments, and most students ultimately have to get into that because we are not computer science engineers. We get these profiles. So is that the end? Most students think that's the end for their petroleum engineer.
You're referring to IT industry, is it?
Yes, exactly. IT
Okay,
jobs. Yes.
IT jobs, yeah. No, that's definitely not the end because I mean, there is so much more petroleum engineering background can deliver, irrespective of it being a conventional job. I believe the conventional jobs of petroleum engineering will exist, will stay, may not grow. The growth will be limited, but the ones which are staying also will have some nuances in the requirements, such as they will require most of it. Probably as an engineer, one would need to have them the capability of doing programming, at least.
Right.
As an engineer, especially, this is going to be, I believe, it is not just for petroleum engineering, it is for every other engineering field. I think programming is going to be such a basic process. Even high school kids will start doing it, and it is going to be kind of before college. I think everybody will automatically know programming. I'm talking about the next generation. For 100% sure, they are all going to know programming before they enter the college. So I think that's going to be an added piece from the conventional petroleum engineering know-how and job requirements. I think the additional pieces will be programming 100%, and probably we should kind of embrace it. And I think folks should upskill themselves in that space. And the other angles, I mean, there are going to be new profiles which will come for a different application space.
Right.
We discussed about renewables.
Yes.
So petroleum engineering does have to provide quite a bit of at least the graduate from petroleum engineering courses have to be kind of strong in understanding a geothermal system, to be precise.
Right.
Can they, can they drill? That's the idea of drilling geothermal wells. There is so much more engineering challenge than really a geophysical challenge. Geophysical challenge exists, but then there is quite a bit of an engineering challenge. We are talking about corrosion. We are talking about drilling through hard rocks. We are talking about, so there could be new technology implemented in those spaces, and there is already existing technology in it. So there is so much more to deliver for any petroleum engineering graduate in that space. But the outlook has to change from a conventional PE job, which previously 20 years back folks would be absorbed in oil and gas industry. It's not going to be just oil and gas. It's going to be a little bit more wider spread.
Right. So what you're like, to summarize, one should look at it more like oil and energy industry, and not just petroleum upstream or downstream. It's an energy industry, a symbiotic relationship you talked about. Everything has to come together, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that brings me to an interesting, which is one like more like my curiosity. I want to know about Rezlytix vision and what Rezlytix does in the industry. And once that is being said, what are the other interesting projects coming up in the industry, which is not being, of course, taught in the curriculum?
No, that's great. So Rezlytix, the intent for Rezlytix has been always to enable the customer, in this case, with some value which they were not seeing before. That has been our intent. And we have constantly wanted to strive to provide or enable reservoir intelligence. And just imagine of having a bot to converse about your reservoir. Literally, that's where Rezlytix is moving towards, to build an AI interface where we converse with our petroleum engineering datasets. Essentially, the interface or the AI automatically knows what to do with a particular set of data. And right now, we have built that AI intelligence. So far, it understands any sort of data. You provide GNG data or petroleum engineering data, any sort of data, it's going to automatically kind of categorize itself and kind of tag it and provide what to be done next. So we are just training it to understand and run each one of our features which we have created as products, like the super resolution seismic, which is the storm. Strike is the inversion module where we invert for rock properties at super resolution. Everything we do is so that the AI can be powerful enough to provide recommendations directly to where we should be drilling for maximizing productivity. So that has been our main vision. We are moving towards that space where we will tomorrow have like an Alexa for oil and gas in a way. If I have to put it in a very layman term.
Right.
But there's so much more to it, because oil and gas industry data sets don't just cannot be directly used. and they have to go through so much more cleaning and cleansing, and there needs to be intelligence built in each one of those steps. So we ensure that through our platform, one can achieve all their required QCs to the standards they believe is accurate. So we ensure that whole process. So that's where we are headed, and potentially we'll be seeing a lot more involvement in the industry and in the space of kind of bringing reservoir intelligence to a level where we call it a digital twin. So that's essentially where, the culmination will happen as a digital twin of the reservoir. You are seeing your reservoir live.
Yes. I like the analogy, Alexa, for the oil and gas industry. That would be really something. It's already a pitch line for your company, already a
Indeed.
great pitch line. So I think I would like to ask you from the student's perspective again. If I dream to work in Rezlytix and I am a second or third year student, what would you tell me that hey, focus on these things and try to learn these things, and when you are in the interview, these are the things that I'll be asking you. So what do you want to prepare us like?
I did tell you that, remember?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, you did.
So if I have to reiterate, so the main intent, I would be saying, at least now things have changed, right? So by when you were initially there, I remember having a lot of discussions about the attitude as to what we should be looking for. Truly speaking, in a second year, third year scenario, the students need to first understand the basics of data science. I am
Mhm.
looking for Rezlytix for sure. We are looking for programming skills to begin with, understanding of algorithms. So mathematics and physics, that understanding has to be strong. Petroleum engineering core domain has to be strong, and then we can do magic essentially.
Yes.
After that, we can do magic. But before that, we need to make sure that all of those core pieces are taken care. You have done a lot of projects or participated in a lot of hackathons which involve petroleum engineering data sets.
Mhm.
If not, then I can provide those problem statements essentially that I have done with
Yes.
so many of them. And yeah, I don't need to name any particular person. There are
Yes.
folks who have already gone out of India and they are doing their PhD right now.
Right.
So, I mean, this is a great opportunity space, to be precise. And one should not look at it in a narrow spectrum of
Mhm.
just working for a company, but literally developing one's own career
Yes.
to open up for any opportunity in the future. So I hope Rezlytix provides that to them,
Yep.
not just as an intern, but also when they're working full time.
Right.
So my suggestion is, yeah, stick to your basics. Programming skills needs to be strong. Mathematics, physics, petroleum engineering, domain knowledge has to be strong. I will be evaluating on folks if they can reproduce a paper. They have to reproduce a paper. Every one of them have to reproduce some paper.
Mhm.
So that sort of technical acumen has to be there.
And it's great for them as well. Paper reproducibility is, I think, everyone has in universities access to papers. So
Yes.
now you know the key to getting into Rezlytix. So why not start doing it? To the
Yeah.
audience, I would like them to know that Rezlytix was one of my first stints in this industry. So I'm doing okay in this industry. So
You're doing
uh,
very good. You're doing
it
very
was.
good, and not just it's not just because of Rezlytix. Come on, you have done way more and amazing work. So I want to congratulate you for the achievement that you have achieved so far, and I'm
Mhm.
100% sure you're gonna be in top tier.
Thank you, sir. So the internship itself, the topic of the internship with for me with Rezlytix was reservoir simulation with Python. So at that time, I was like, why is it not CMG, or why is it not something like
Yeah,
that? I was still learning, but now down the lane, like Deeps are readily focused. The key is math and physics, and that's what that internship kind of branded me with. So I think rightly said, it's a great time to spend. So whatever we are talking about right now, I've already talked about with you, but the industry has to know that. I would like to know a bit of technicalities now. So
Mhm.
right now, apart from data science, the two other booming terms that we read quite often is one is CCS or CCUS, and the other one is about the electric vehicle industry because the net
Mhm.
zero thing. So
Yeah,
uh, I want a bit of motivation that CCUS is not something brandly new for the people who know reservoir physics.
yeah,
So I want
yeah.
your 2 cents on that, and then we want to talk about the challenges of the electric vehicle industry. So yeah.
Okay. Well, CCUS is happening. Um, I remember, Professor. I mean, in at during my university days or graduate days in Houston, I remember carbon sequestration projects already being awarded through in the United States, funded by the government. So, I mean, it's a reality. It's happening, and it has become more of a reality now. There's going to be more such projects throughout the globe. It's going to increase if we can successfully sequester CO2 and also make sure that it stays inside without any leakage. And that's where kind of imaging, geophysics,
Mm,
engineering, all of them will kind of be utilized.
right.
Um, I think the economics will again play a powerful role. Who's going to drive the economics as to? So I think my limited understanding potentially wants to see some more success stories, which I can also comment on the economics. Right now, I don't have much of an idea on the economic side of it, but it's happening. In India, I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but for sure, it's
Mhm.
definitely on the pipeline. There's something major which will happen in terms of when we are talking about our kind of COP, I think target, the one which we have for carbon dioxide emission to reach net zero probably by 2075, I believe, or 78. So yeah, I think it's a reality. It's happening
Mhm.
now. I mean, yeah, that's what I can say on CCUS.
The physics is kind of similar to
Physics is
understand,
very much
right?
same.
Yeah,
CCUS, even geothermal, quite same. I'm very excited that geothermal has almost started in India.
right.
Potentially, I mean, one of the largest NOCs starting the first project in India. So
Brilliant.
that is definitely very exciting. The physics, I mean, everything is very
Mhm.
much similar. Uh, Geothermal also for petroleum engineers, I think one should do simulated work quite a bit.
Mhm.
If I am a petroleum engineering student today, I would focus myself in finding out. I'll directly, openly say this challenge: find out any reservoir data you have. Even you can take the valve data and find a permeable zone and see if you can simulate if you had a geothermal fluid there and
Okay.
simulate how much power you can generate utilizing already the existing wells. I would say that would be a very use any data you
Mhm.
either simulated it but come up with a real metric of how much power you can generate and do a economic analysis and
Okay.
see how much profitable you would be after how many years.
Okay.
You sell that, 100% sure you'll be hired.
Nice.
Anybody who does that, they'll be hired. At least if they do it for me, I'll hire them. So
That's great. This is the most valuable section of the podcast. I would like to highlight this uh, for students.
yeah.
And again, the second topic being electric vehicles. Anything that you have spotted out in that section? Because one thing that I asked, the question that I asked in my own company is, I'm an upstream engineer. Should I be scared of electric vehicles coming in, or what should I do?
No,
So
no, should buy them after 10 years maybe.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I will have a very limited scope from my
Mhm.
end. I'm very much engrossed in the subsurface world.
Right.
EVs are a great space. I'm sure they will be the next thing. Just it doesn't EVs don't fully kind of quench the thirst of energy.
Hmm.
At least they don't fully yet. Not even yet till 2050. Also, they will not. So what governments are trying to do is accelerate that process by providing norms where, such as in 2030 onwards, no non-renewable fueled cars or vehicles are going to get manufactured. So such norms are going to just propel more and more sales of EV, at least, and more, so that the reduction in kind of the CO2 emissions is achieved. So I think, but it still doesn't kind of quench that thirst of energy. Energy demand is increasing quite a bit. Oil and gas has to play a major role in doing this transition from ONG, from non-renewable to renewable. Oil and gas will actually propel that transition. The funding and the money is going to come through oil and gas, through the non-renewable sector. So that's probably going to be one of the most interesting. It's a reality, whether we like it or not. ONG is funding the non-renewable. I mean, the transition towards the renewable. All the oil and gas companies are funding it. So the major source of revenue for them is from kind of utilizing or producing, exploiting oil and gas.
Right. So that means like gradually the point of hireability, if you are, no matter where in the level of the hierarchy you are, if you're not aware of the coming trends of the industry and you are very conventional, being conventional oil and gas engineer, I think it worked for the last 20, 30 years. But now for people like me, as I don't have a clear understanding of the various trends beyond what I just talked about. So maybe that is important. The alarm should be raised right now for everyone in the industry. If you want to stay secure and let that sink in. So that is what I would like to say. I would like to, I see we are on the top of the hour on the time that you gave us. So I would like to finally ask you about uh, you have seen data science projects happening in your company. What is a traditional? What is the majority of the time that an oil and gas related data scientist spends on? What is the skill that we lack at times? What is that we need to be aware of before we step into the industry, just from the point of data science?
Okay, so I think you're asking two questions, right? If I can reiterate, one is what is the skill required for the petroleum engineer expert, or you're generally mentioning in the oil and gas industry, anybody?
So suppose like you've seen in the last 1 year that these are the data science practices that are relevant, very relevant for petroleum engineers, and your company has seen that people get stuck at this point every now and then. Yeah. What is that?
I think a lot of it is in the basics still, because the basics are unclear. Again, the mathematical acumen has to be still strengthened. I don't have anything fancy to add to this. It's still very basics. One has to kind of, and we are all learning, right? All of us are learning in this whole journey towards transitioning to deep learning or machine learning based solutions. I'm 100% sure there is nobody out there who's a thorough expert. Everybody is learning. So there will be mistakes. What I see folks getting stuck at is not able to relate that the AI algorithms or AI models which are built in image domains or in the imaging world cannot be directly utilized for oil and gas, has to undergo some level of improvement, or kind of the architectures need to be changed to honor the numbers which we call data or information in oil and gas industry. And also the data which we are taking input to one of these architectures, let's say we have edited that architecture, but the data when we are taking in as an input to this architecture cannot be just that raw data. It has to undergo a domain-based pre-processing.
Right.
And these are the two things which I believe I see a huge disconnect with a lot of folks. Either they do one thing very well, they do the pre-processing very well, but they forget that pre-processing also has to be done automated. The pre-processing also needs to be done without too much human intervention. And secondly, they're not able to reconstruct the architecture very well because they are just using plug and play, some other existing AI model, which is probably doing some sort of image-based analysis and plugging and playing with it, which is great in the learning space. But to mature it, we have to tweak both the architecture and the data, which is getting input. That's the secret, truly. That's it. If one can do that effectively, one can come up with some valuable output, which can be utilized or can be thoroughly used for a decision making of, let's say, of drilling a few $1 million wells. One can make a decision. So I think there is huge power there.
So I think what you are pointing at, and you have already told us in the early section of the webinar or the podcast, is the connect should be there with physics. You cannot be a one-dimensional data scientist as you step in the industry. You can be lucky enough to get a job, but ultimately, if you are passionate about the industry, you can only help if you know the physics. So
yeah,
I think that's great, and I think and you would agree, re-simulating papers in maybe Python code or something like that is a great practice that you keep on telling students. Yeah.
If I have to add, I was told the same thing during my graduate days, and I would do the same thing because that really makes you learn much more.
Not just the best practices, but the wrong practices as
and
well.
the wrong practices.
Yeah.
Research is also about knowing the good, not so good, whatever doesn't work also needs to be known so that you don't do that in the future. So we'll do mistakes for sure, but at the end, I mean, you'll come up, you overcome those mistakes.
Great. Yep. So I think my questions will never end, but in respect of the
I was scared.
In respect of the time that
No,
you have given me, I would like to call the session up. Thank you, Deep sir, for allowing the Sunday evening. I would have a reservation sometime in the future as well to connect with you again. This time with a more technical topic than a generic introduction. But it was great connecting you after a few days from the last time I had in Rezlytix, and I won't mind coffee invitations when I'm
happy to connect whenever you are in Delhi. Let me know.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Divyanshu.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir. Good day.